through, drives one in the air, deep right field. It's got a chance. Grand slam. Way back it might be. It could be. Cubs win. Cubs win. Cubs win. Holy cow.
The Dingers podcast is on the air. I'm your host, Mitch. I'm here with Jeffrey and Kevin. I have no idea where Jeff went, but we're coming off of Cubs convention, and we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot that's happened in Cubs news over the last, since we've talked last. It's been a while since we've got on the mics, just because winters can be long when we're grinding and doing an episode every single week during the season. It can get long. So this winter we've kind of taken a little bit of break, but we're back at it. So much has happened. I don't even know if we've had an episode since Kyle Tucker has been.
No,
I think
that was the last one.
We had, but yeah, so we have a lot to talk about. I mean, if we haven't had one since then, but we're excited to be back on the mics and chat Cubs. We have Jake going to drop in with a video answering some questions, and we have from Sammy Sosa to talking about Matt Shaw to the first base backups in our bullpen. And even going to discuss a little bit of what Ricketts had to say this weekend, because, yeah, there's a lot to get into there. But let's start the show by talking about probably one of our childhood best memories of summer was watching Sammy Sosa absolutely obliterate baseballs for at least 3 years in a row, getting 60 home runs. He's the only player to have over 60 home runs in 3 straight seasons. How do you feel, Jeff, of the Cubs welcoming back Sammy into Cubdom? He's now welcome back. What's your feelings with all that and seeing him at Cubs convention and now being able to see him part of just the festivities at Cubs this year?
So was he welcome back because he apologized for using steroids, or just because he left as a disgruntled employee?
I'm not quite sure. That's what hasn't been really cleared up. He just said, "I'm sorry." It's kind of like when you've done a couple things wrong with your wife, and
oh boy,
you don't know which one she's mad at, and you're like, "Hey, I'm sorry."
You got to be just vague enough to cover all the bases.
You're trying to blanket all of them. I think that's what Sammy's doing.
There's not a woman on the planet that wouldn't be the one to say, "What are you sorry for?" It's like shit.
Yeah, but you have to be like, it has to do with your timing and your tone. There's a way to get it across so you're like, I'm pretty sure this is gonna float and it's gonna be okay. And then when they ask what you're sorry about, just be like, just for living, for being around, for not being around.
There's definitely an art to it, Jeff.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I breathed wrong. Oh, it's interesting. There is the tainted history from the PEDs or whatever, but he did make baseball fun for a lot of us when we unknowingly knew what was happening. I don't know if we'll ever see another player like him in a Cubs uniform that could just fucking smash baseballs like that day and like that month of June he had in '98. Phenomenal.
I remember, so I grew up on a farm. I'm a farm boy. I remember purposely wanting to go out and rake hay and drive the tractor just so I could sit in the tractor and listen to the radio of him just obliterating balls. Like I had to be outside doing work. And so it's like, well, I'd rather be in the tractor listening to the Cubs game and sitting in a chair than like anything else. And that was like my summer of just listening to him on the radio with Pat Hughes and Ron Santo and just him absolutely just destroying baseballs. And I mean, there's nothing better.
Yeah, that was like the summer I learned how to read a box score in a newspaper, because we were often busy enough I didn't watch the games, but we'd get the newspaper every morning and I'd pop it open and go read the box score to see, did he hit 1, did he hit 2, did he hit 7, the night before. I'm super excited that they brought him back. He was the last one of that era to be kind of welcomed back. I mean, Barry Bonds has been around for a while. Mark McGwire has been around for a while. He has an energy to him that is fun to watch him on the screen and watch him interact. Especially there's that kid's interview, and the kid asked him to teach him how to do the hop. He just pops up there, does it right away. He's got his same old smile and grin about him. I love it. I can't wait for him to throw out a first pitch. They'll show a highlight reel out on the big board. It's gonna be great.
And him, as well as Derek Lee, will now be inducted in the Cubs Hall of Fame, which is awesome. Like, we can have our talk. We can talk about D. Lee in a little bit, but like from 19, even I'd go back to 1997, 96, like Sammy Sosa all the way through 2001 was absolutely insane. Like watching him swing, and like he would hit home runs with balls that like off the bat now, like it just like he would just flick the wrist and gone. And his energy, the running out with the flag at CubsCon as kind of a remembrance of what he did after 9/11. Like he was one that I think did more for Cubs, the organization, than any other player has done. He kind of revived Wrigleyville and made it going to Cubs games fun again. Like, I mean, since the season when the Cubs had a good team, after that, like, I mean, I remember going to games as a child. Like, it was great and exciting to go to Wrigley, but there was nothing like.
I believe Mitch's Wi-Fi has locked up.
Oh boy.
Oh, this is great.
Oh, he's back.
Sorry. There's nothing like going to a game in 1998 and watching him hit bombs. Like that was like, I mean, I remember going to a couple games and it was the best of being able to watch him in the bleachers just absolutely destroy baseballs. But not only did he get inducted, but D. Lee also got inducted into the Cubs Hall of Fame, or they will be this season. Were you guys big D. Lee fans?
I was. I kind of came back to the fandom about that time when Derek Lee was on the team running the show. He had is that some Starlin Castro year? Early, really, really young Starlin Castro years.
It was like Ryan Terrio years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, the third baseman, Aramis Ramirez.
Ramirez. I mean, it was that when they like made it to they had that stretch. Ryan Dempster, like when they were really, really good. They had Mark DeRosa playing second base. You thought they were gonna like do awesome in the playoffs, and then they get swept by. I feel like they got swept by the D-backs, and
I don't know if they won a playoff game. They were like
no, they didn't. That team didn't win. Those guys didn't ever win.
Didn't they win like 3 straight division titles?
Yeah, 2.
Not one, 2,
2,
and not one playoff win.
But I also remember, like, what year was it? I think it was 2006. 2006. He was having an absolute like MVP season, D. Lee, and then he broke his wrist, like on a play at first base. I can't remember who it was. I think it was against the Dodgers. Was it Rafael Vercal? Maybe like ran into, like he was reaching over trying to grab a ball and ran into his wrist and broke his wrist. And like, you're like, oh, are you kidding me? Like D. Lee is going insane right now. And like, just that threw off that season. But it's great to have them back, especially have Sammy back. It was great to see them at the convention. I'll say this: D. Lee looked like he could still play ball. He looked
Right.
He looked fit.
I think he needs to be a potential backup. Keep him on the
I don't
roster.
know how old he was when he was playing for the Cubs, but he looked like an 18-year-old.
Yeah, he
Back
did.
then,
He
he
did
looked really
stay
super
one
young.
age the entire
Yeah.
time.
But yeah, Cubs convention was great. I've never gone to Cubs convention. I don't think I ever will. Like, I don't have a desire. That amount of people in a small space.
There's too many people doing people-y things.
Exactly, Jeff. That's
so
I'm
I
with
haven't gone. I don't really have a desire. I mean, meeting the players would be great. It'd be fun to like do the panels, but like watching them on marquee is just as good. Like and I don't have to deal with all the people. But it was reported, and it was cool to see all the players. And it was kind of reported this weekend that like from Jed Hoyer and Ricketts conversations that the third base job is basically going to be met in-house. And so that's meaning that Shaw is going to basically have the runway to earn that starting position with like Gage Workman, who they picked up, who's pretty good defensively, not great with a bat, maybe as his backup. How confident are we in that of just handing the reins over to a rookie third baseman? I mean, we've been looking for third basemen forever since Ron Santo. We got it with Aramis Ramirez for a little bit. We had it with Chris Bryant for a little bit. Are we willing to pass this off and just give it to Matt Shaw?
Well, we really don't have a choice because we let go of the other guy that was playing third base. Esox Paredes. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, you said it right. Good job.
All right. Esox Parade Magazine. Anyway, so yeah, we got to give him a chance. See what he's got. What's the worst that's going to happen? Commits an error? Oh my
Nick
God.
Madrigal. If Nick Madrigal can do it, he could do it.
Right.
Can
Right.
Matt Shaw make the throw from third to first without having to run halfway across the infield?
He can.
Okay. Well, then we're on the upside then.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's I'm kind of looking at what we have here. And I think I like the idea that they're going to give Shaw a runway. I hope it works well. I'm interested to see how he'll bounce back after the league adjusts to him. You know, that first time, that's always that big thing with rookies. There's another guy on the team that's kind of been sitting in the backside that we haven't seen a whole lot, that Luis Vasquez is around too. I'd be interested to see how he factors in if Fangraphs has him really low percentage playing there, but he potentially could be an option if Shaw needs some work time back down at AAA at some points. I do like the confidence there. Would I like them to have gone out and got a third baseman? Sure, we've said that forever, but I don't remember how we were feeling before Chris Bryant came up. But we tend to have this thing where we're like, yeah, sure, here you can play third base now because we have nobody
After
else.
service time, though. After service time.
True.
To make sure we can control him as long as possible.
But not
he
Shaw.
could win. He could win.
Yeah, he could win
year.
rookie when they get money.
Yeah.
I like it. I like that they're, and I think it was Jed Hoyer kind of said this in the interview with Kaplan, that their kind of goal is to create a stable core, but yet be able to pull up one rookie a year to work them into the fold. And that's how you create like good teams over years, is that you aren't trying to backfill with a couple rookies, just one rookie and work them in, whether it's a pitcher. And so I like that they're willing to allow Matt Shaw at a young age to see where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is what they have around Shaw. Is do they have enough that when Shaw goes through his struggles, which he's going to as a rookie, to be able to not have it be magnified? You know, like when PCA was going through his struggles last year at the beginning of the year, like it was magnified because there wasn't people around him to kind of carry it and kind of hide that he wasn't doing as well at the plate. Right. So like it makes it a lot easier. I mean, I was a big Chicago Bulls fan way back in the day when Michael Jordan played. And like, I became a Bulls fan because of BJ Armstrong.
Oh,
I'm an Iowa Hawkeye basketball fan. BJ Armstrong gets drafted by the Bulls, and BJ fit in with the Bulls really, really well and didn't have to do a whole lot. And sometimes his struggles got overshadowed by Michael Jordan's greatness, and it wasn't as magnified. And that's why I'm kind of concerned that there isn't enough stardom around Matt Shaw. And if he goes through a struggle, everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, I told you we shouldn't have been giving him the runway here." And it's like, if we would have a little bit more around him, I would feel more confident. But the dude can ball out. The dude can flat out play. And so I like that we're giving him that opportunity to just take it and run with it, go with it. So yeah, I don't know. The other area of need is just our bench. Our bench is pretty weak right now. Who do we have? I don't even know who we have. Like Gage Workman, we've picked up to play maybe a little backup third base. We let go of Master Boney, so there's all those jokes we can't use anymore.
Is
Madrigal's gone.
Is Darwin Barney available?
That's a blast from the past.
Not sure, but he doesn't have range, and we don't want him.
Yeah.
The big spot that I think, as far as if we're not going to go out and get anybody for third base and we're going to fill that with in-house, they must be pretty confident in Gage Workman, is first base depth is pretty weak in the whole organization. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do with having a backup for Bush? I would say they need to go out and get a right-handed bat. Mark Canha would be a guy that I like. I do know there's others out there. Our buddy Anthony Rizzo is available, but he's left-handed. I don't know if I really want Anthony Rizzo, but I would go get Mark Canha in a heartbeat. And I think that's going to be one of the moves that they would go get.
With the Pirates.
He hasn't yet, but I know they've been talking.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'd like to see them pick up a right-handed bat. What? Now I'm trying to remember. I watched him play at Iowa. What's Ballesteros? Is he lefty as well?
He's lefty. Yes, he's a lefty.
Okay. Yeah. So I would like to see them go pick up a right-handed back that can play second base, and who knows, maybe it's a guy who can play second in an outfield position.
I mean, there's also like Ty France is another one that's available. Connor Joe is available. I think he bats. Is he bat right? I think he bats right. Justin Turner is also available, but I think Mark Canha would be great. He's played a couple different positions, but putting him at first base would be a great backup for that. Bullpen is another area need, and
always
trying to find a back end. And I think that's where Jed wants to spend his money. And it was reported that he was going to spend that money on Tanner Scott, but Tanner Scott decided to go to the Dodgers, just like everyone else decides to go sign with the Dodgers. Yeah, that one. I mean, we've talked about Roki Sasaki signing with the Dodgers, and that's kind of expected. I wasn't too.
That wasn't a surprise.
Angry about that.
I liked your message in our chat. I think it was you who had the on the move, and it was all those characters. Yeah. After Tanner Scott, it was The Rock, Darth Vader,
Lightning
Yoda.
McQueen. Scott in the chat says Pete Alonso bats right. He does. He does. I don't think he'd be a backup to Michael Bush, but yeah, I don't
It's
think
an
they're not going to
interesting
spend the money.
idea.
They're not going to spend the money unless it's a 1-year contract.
Yeah.
There's never a bad 1-year contract. So if Bregman or Pete Alonso wants to take a 1-year deal, I think Jed would be on board. I would be on board with that. But as far as bullpen, now that Tanner Scott is gone, I will plug this. So On Tap Sports Network, we're part of the great On Tap Sports Network. We love being part of On Tap Sports Network. They just released see if I can bring this up. Is it working?
It's just a
It's
circle. Oh,
It's buffering.
there we go.
There it
Okay, so
goes.
they just have an article. Time to pivot. 6 relief pitchers you should consider. So go check out On Tap Sports Network. It's a great write-up on guys who they should go after. Brooks Raley, he's been in the Cubs organization already at one time, but he's pitched
David
pretty good. A
Robertson.
lefty. Kirby Yates is a guy we've talked about before on this show. That would be a great signing to go get Kirby Yates. Kyle Finnegan, dude has been lights out over the last couple of years with Washington, is available. Scott Alexander, and then Dave Robertson, who's also pitched for the Cubs before. Really liked his time. Really liked Hottovy, and then Carlos Estevez, closer. I like. Gonna have to maybe spend a little bit more money. And then one that's not on there is Kenley Jensen, that has been kind of floating all around, but there he's gonna be a closer. And then what do you do with Porter Hodge? Where do you think they go next? Where do you think they kind of shift their focus? And who do you think they will sign?
I was intrigued a couple of things with the Tanner Scott thing. That they came out and said that the Cubs threw out, what was it, 4 years, $67 million or something like that.
Yeah.
Like a 4-year contract for a closer. I thought it was interesting that the Cubs went out and kind of swung for the fences on that one. A lot different than kind of they've done with relief pitching in the past. I would love to see them bring in a for sure arm. We have a lot of youth in our bullpen. It would be nice to bring in someone. I mean, we had David Robertson before, and he was a great presence in the clubhouse for our bullpen in the past. It'd be nice to see him. If they do something like that, like David Robertson, I would like them to also grab another guy, because David Robertson really shined. What was it, the setup role when he was here with us last time? And then moved into closing, I think, a bunch of games because injuries. But then
My thing is we have about 30 million to be able to spend, I would say.
Right.
And it's going to be really hard to split that money and see if you can get 2, because I think they want to save some of that for in season, that if they're doing well, that they could go and get another person. So that's where it's like, if you sign Carlos Estevez, he's going to probably get you're probably spent at least 10 million on him. I would say that, I mean, that's about the same as like Hector Neris last year, the contract. I think it was 9 for him. Like, you're going to have to get at least 10 probably. And to be able to then turn around and get like a Yates or get maybe a Robertson, but Robertson pitched really, really well last year. Like, he's going to be looking to get a little bit of money. Finnegan, maybe, like I don't know how you could get 2, because I think even like AJ Minter that signed with the Mets, what did he get? I think he got 8 or 9 on his deal, and he was hurt last year. It's like, okay, he got a pretty good 2 years, 22 million. So yeah, it's like he got close to 11 million for that, and he was hurt. So it's like the price for relief pitching has gone up.
That makes sense.
So it's going to make it tough to be able to get 2. I would like to, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Are you confident in Porter Hodge being the closer?
Confident? I don't know. Relievers are so finicky, what they do from one year to the other. Would I like to be confident in him? Yeah, but I'm not. I don't know why. I think we've just seen some up and down years from some of the guys we've actually homegrown or who have been in the organization for a few years.
Do we have any other options?
Scott says the next big Cubs signing is going to be Carlos Estevez, which he's a good relief pitcher. I think they're a little bit hesitant after the Neris thing to be able to go and do something like a longer deal, but they were with Tanner Scott. But Tanner Scott's been a little bit more proven. And so I think they're more willing to go do that. And he was left-handed. But I think one thing when we look at the bullpen, I think that we're forgetting is we have Jordan Wicks that could possibly fill down. We have Ben Brown that could possibly fill into the bullpen. And something that like a lot of people are forgetting about is Gillian.
Oh, true.
I don't think he's gonna the dude can throw gas. Put him in the bullpen, let him throw 1 inning, and I think he will turn into a lights out pitcher. So I think that I know they like him as a starter, but I don't think he has enough pitches in his arsenal to be like a 4-pitch pitcher. I think he's a great 3-pitch pitcher or 2-pitch pitcher that could be a great bullpen guy. And he throws hard.
Well, and our starting pitching, we have a lot of guys potentially who could starting pitch. Like he would be nice to throw into the bullpen.
Yep. Now that they brought back Colin Ray. They have Boyd that they've added. Plus, if Wicks is in the mix there, and Assad
and Ben Brown was showing off the mound the other day.
So, but Ben Brown did really good as a bullpen arm last year, so they could fill him in there. So they have pieces where they can move around, but they need a solid guy, and so that's where Estevez makes a lot of sense. David Robertson's done it for a lot of years, and he's been pretty consistent. Maybe they go with him. I don't know. But Tanner Scott would have been really nice because his slider is absolutely filthy. But he gone.
True.
To the Dodgers.
Of course.
Jeff, do you think there should be a salary cap?
Yes.
So that the Dodgers,
something's got to be done. How many people have they signed to deferred contracts that are just outrageously ridiculous?
So you think that there should be a salary cap?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a tough one because, I want to be a Players fan, and they definitely do not want a salary cap. But at the same time, if they're all just going and signing with one team, it's really hard to imagine how you would manage that without putting a cap on there. I mean, that's how football does it.
Yeah.
Okay, I heard this. I can't remember where I heard it. And this is why you don't want a salary cap. So let's say that everybody has $10. Every team has $10 to spend. And everybody from China, or not China, everybody from Japan, all the baseball players like Roki Sasaki, Otani, all of them could sign anywhere in the United States with any Major League Baseball team. And there's a salary cap, meaning everybody can offer them the $10. Do you think they're going to want to go to Milwaukee?
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to want to go to Cincinnati? Do you think they're going to want to? No, where are they going to want to go?
Yeah, they're still going back to LA.
They're still going to go to LA. And you'll actually make it even harder for those teams that have the salary cap there in a small market, because even the guys for $1, are you going to play for $1 on a losing team, or are you going to play for $1 on a winning team and want to win a World Series? Then you create people even in the middle market that like, well, I could play for this team for like $3 and lose, or I could go play on the Dodgers for $3 and win. Like it would, I think it would create even a bigger mess where they would even get better.
All right. Well, okay. Then here's what I want to see. I want to see the Dodgers go bankrupt, like just totally implode, to where they can't sign anybody for 50 fucking cents.
I want them to implode by like not by getting injured, by just sucking. I want them to absolutely get rocked. I like Freddie Freeman, maybe like Mookie Betts, to go through the biggest struggle of his career.
Like how many egos can you have in a locker room at one time?
I want Shohei Ohtani to forget how to throw the ball. Who is the pitcher for the Cardinals that forgot like how to pitch? Lefty. I could see his name. Then he came back as an outfielder.
Oh, was it Scott something? I can see him too. There was just something done.
But yeah, I want them to like all get the yips. Can we like pray that they all get the yips?
That's a great one.
I want to like cast that. If like there's any witches or wizards in our listening, like cast a yips spell on the Dodgers, because it's ridiculous. Rick Ankiel, yes, Carter Hawkins. Carter Hawkins is listening to us tonight. Look at that. That's special right there. That Carter Hawkins.
Wow.
We're big time. Rick Ankiel, yes, it was Rick Ankiel that Shohei becomes Rick Ankiel as a pitcher, where he forgets.
I don't think he's going to pitch that long anyway. Keeps hurting his throwing arm anyway. He's just DH.
Let's get into. I want to play Jake, another guy, host of our podcast. He couldn't be on tonight, but I did send him some questions to be able to answer. So here's him answering some of the questions I sent him.
Go Irish. Not really a Notre Dame fan anymore, but we hate Ohio State. Okay. Nice. Should be wearing a Bears hat, though, right now. First question. With no big moves coming yet after the Tucker trade, what needs to happen to get you excited about the upcoming year? I'll say I'm kind of inherently excited just because I feel like year 2 of Craig Counsell is going to make a difference. Most of the other signings, well, I guess Tucker was a trade, but the other signings moves have just been kind of peripheral and not super exciting. But they're treating the roster as if, they want guys to play above their projections. That's the thing we've heard now for years, and it's really annoying, especially as we continue to see the Dodgers just pour money, just throw money at whoever wants it. I'd like some money, Dodgers. I will say I like the Matt Boyd signing. I don't know if he's going to be the 5th starter, but I think I like him with the Cubs pitching infrastructure. Colin Ray, not super exciting, but I think that he's going to be a great swing man. And then I just saw today that Cade Horton is going to be healthy, full go come spring. So I think that that's great to get him in the mix. I don't know, man. I think it's tough. I don't really think there's anything explicitly, exciting right now about the Cubs. I think I'm just kind of waiting to see spring training and what storylines we can follow there. Second question, with the problem last year being that our offense was horrible for 2 months, is the Tucker trade enough to make this lineup more sustainable and consistent? No, it's not. It is not enough. Again, you are hoping for guys to play above their projections. And I don't know, I think that Seiya's been good. Seiya's been very good. I think it's like over his last 162 games or something like that. I don't know exactly what the metric is, but he's been top 10 in baseball on WRC plus. Someone check me on that. But Seiya DHing, maybe that makes him better. Maybe that makes his offense better. He can focus on that. Really study the pitchers in between at bats, whatever. Maybe it hurts him. I don't know. I think, I've listened to a lot of fantasy baseball podcasts over this offseason, and guys really like Ian Happ. People outside of the Cubs really like Ian Happ. And I just would like to see him turn it on a little bit earlier in the season. So I think, looking forward to that, or looking to see that. And finally, I'm really excited about Matt Shaw, but I'm really nervous because this roster doesn't feel ready to cradle him. You know what I mean? It feels like he's being pushed into something that him being the gamer, it seems like he is, he'll grab that opportunity by the horns and run with it. But what's our backup plan if Vidal Brujan, Gage Workman, what's our backup plan if he doesn't hit? So that concerns me a little bit. Finally, excitement level check. Where are you at? This is right after CubsCon weekend, right? Yeah, right after CubsCon weekend, a time where we can all get excited for the season, and it seems like we'll all come back to earth after we've all come back to earth after the Tucker trade, and nothing much happening. Where's your excitement level overall? On a scale of 1 to 10, I think for baseball I'm at a 7. Just baseball in general, I'm at a 7, pushing an 8. For the Cubs, I'm below a 5. I mean, they should win the division, but I feel like we said that last year. I think I'm not upset. I didn't expect them to sign Tanner Scott. I think it was on Bleacher Nation. They wrote, I think Brett wrote that he'd be excited or expects a combination of Kirby Yates and Yohan Moncada to kind of round things out. And I think that, to kind of go back to the first question, yeah, I could get behind both of those. I've always liked Kirby Yates. And Yohan Moncada, if you bring him in as a guy that you're not expecting him to be a superstar, you just kind of you give him that one year pillow contract. Give him some time at third and second. See what he does. Switch hitter. Only 29, I think, or maybe even 28 still. Yeah, I don't know, man. Wild cards like that get me excited. When we signed Dom Smith to a minor league deal, I think that was last season, I was excited about that. Post-hype sleepers are a thing in fantasy baseball, and I look forward to guys like that getting opportunities as fringe players in real life too. So I don't know, maybe a change of scenery to the north side, not a big move for Moncada, but maybe that does something. I do think that they'll end up with him. I really do think they'll end up with him. And then Kirby Yates or who are the other? I haven't been reading a lot of baseball stuff because the Bears have been, Ben Johnson. There's been stuff to look at there, and the playoffs have been exciting. But that's what I got. Baseball excitement, 7.5. Cubs excitement, call it a 4. Do something, Jed. Get me hyped.
Yeah, I think that's like he nailed it with it's too many times in the last couple of years where we've relied on guys outperforming their projections for us to be able to be a successful team. Like the Yankees don't have to like worry about a guy outperforming his projection. He just has to be him. He could be under projection and they will still make the playoffs. Right?
Yeah, that's
They
what
could have three guys. They could have like Mookie Betts, Freeman, and let's say Smith, their catcher. They underperform their projections and they still have enough to make the playoffs.
Yeah, didn't Freeman start last season on like a pretty horrible slump or whatever? And it was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Keep letting him play through it. He'll get through it. Everybody else is carrying it. Or
the Braves had half their team hurt and still almost made the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we have to like hope that
somebody loses a couple.
Somebody loses, and we have to outperform projections.
That's right.
And I think Jake brought it up too. Like, you know, the Cubs are expected to win the division again, but there was a writer or somebody who was tweeting about how Cubs expected to win the division again, but yet we'll still do the bare minimum to make that just maybe a maybe rather than a for sure. And
or
just
if it happens, it's a barely.
Yeah. And they're just ripping into them. And it's like, yeah, you could put this to bed, just sign a couple more guys or whatever. It was the tweet.
And that leads us right into our next topic of conversation of talking about Ricketts and his comments this weekend. I'm actually going to play clips from the Setup Man YouTube channel, which Kyle with the Setup Man is awesome. Like if you aren't subscribed to his YouTube channel, go right now. Like go and subscribe to the Setup Man podcast type. He does like a live podcast on YouTube. It's awesome. He's a great dude, super smart. His stuff is great. So like go check him out. He was at the Cubs convention, but he did a great episode. I think it dropped today about some of Ricketts' comments. So I'm going to play a little bit of clips for that. He does a good job of kind of breaking down just the predicament that the Cubs are in. But yeah, so I'm going to play a couple clips. We'll kind of talk about it.
Here's what he said.
The business model in baseball, it's worked pretty well for a long time, but there's a few things right now that just are a little out of kilter. Obviously, the Dodgers have a lot more resources naturally from smart business moves they made years ago, and so I don't begrudge them any of that. Some teams just have outside resources that are funding their player moves and acquisitions, and that's really hard to compete with. And I understand when fans say, "How come you don't spend like that?" Because they think somehow we have all these dollars that the Dodgers have, or the Mets have, or the Yankees have, and we just keep it, which isn't true at all. Like what happens is we try to break even every year, and that's about it. And I think that there's one problem, and then I think there's a competitive balance issue that gets created. But the other problem is, I don't think fans should spend all their time thinking about which team has more money or how much they're spending. We should be talking about players and who we draft and who we're developing, and I just think it becomes a big narrative that's a distraction. So I think the model could get better.
Feels a little bit like deflection, does it not? Hey, I understand what fans are thinking, but we're trying to break even. Also, you're focusing on the wrong things. You should be focusing on our draft. You should be focusing on yada, yada, yada. Well, at the end of the day, the draft doesn't make the big headlines.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about that. We'll get into a little bit more of Kyle's Setup Man, but what do you think about Ricketts' comments about one? The big was break even, that we're just breaking even, that you think that we're making all this money, but we're just breaking even. How do you think like Ricketts comes off there to fans listening to that?
Kind of like a uppity prick, if I'm being honest. Like The idea that you're running a team to break even, like, and from the outside looking in, sitting there, I'm sitting there watching all of those businesses that they've developed over the last few years, all of the revenue, the marquee sports and everything like that. And I'm like, in my head going, you're only breaking even? Like, for some reason that leaves me head scratching. However, I know we have more information on that in a little bit, but it doesn't sound like a guy who's really excited to be a owner or partial owner or GM of a baseball team, or running the baseball team if his goal is breaking even, and just how he talked about it.
Yeah, like I'm trying to give Ricketts the benefit of the doubt and not be super overly critical, because I don't know. I don't want to pretend like I know everything that's going on behind the scenes and who they all have to pay, who they all like have employed. Like I don't know all that. And I know, like, in his interview with Dave Kaplan, he brought up that they spent, I can't remember what the number was, $1 million on the renovations for Wrigley, right? Out of their pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Where a lot of other city teams, the city pays for a new stadium, or the city with tax dollars pays for renovations, and they did it all themselves out of their own pocket through different investors, right? And so I kind of like, okay, they have done a lot to Wrigley. Like in the interview with Dave Kaplan, like he talked about, like, when he took the ownership of the Cubs, he had two goals: to win a World Series and to renovate Wrigley and restore it back so it could be the home of the Cubs for an extended period of time. And he's done both of those, right?
Right.
He's definitely done both of those to make Wrigley back beautiful again, and they won the World Series. I think they still want to win, but now they're in a position where they have to make their investors happy.
Right.
And that's not overspending. So I don't even, like, I know we like to go at Ricketts. I don't even know if it's a Ricketts issue anymore. These other investors that have so much pull into what the team does and how they spend money.
Yeah, and that's something he goes on to talk about, is those investors, and how he describes it almost like I think we were talking before, like a publicly traded company that has to be able to pay off their Wall Street debts, so to speak, or the angel fund people that give them the money up front. They have to be able to pay them off before they pay themselves even, and stuff like that. The way he describes it kind of seems more like that, rather than someone who's personally taking in a lot of revenue and then turning around and being able to put all of that towards the team, towards the product on the field. It's interesting, but I don't know. It's also a weird, like, at the same time, we've seen them do big contracts in the past and pay big money, and they've just been so seemingly frightened by that first tax threshold to, like, not go above it or below. Like, they want to always stay below it. Sometimes they dip above it. They never want to be above it for more than a year or two.
Well, it's when they pinch pennies on small dumb things is when it really gets me. Like, that's where I was like, I tried to understand Ricketts, but then you're $2 million apart on arbitration with your franchise now, your best player on your team, Kyle Tucker, and you're not willing to go an extra $2 million and go from it was like 15 and 18 or 15, 16.
15 and like 17 and a half or something like that.
And it's like, seriously? I would rather you not sign Gage Workman and put his contract towards the $2 million to be able to cover the extra arbitration, just so I'll use the phrase from the Locked On Cubs podcast, which is a great Cubs podcast, the optics. It's just the optics. Right. It just doesn't feel good when you're trying to you have a player like Kyle Tucker that eventually you might want to sign to a long-term deal, which would be great. And you're going to pinch pennies over this little tiny thing. It's that's where I get frustrated.
Well, yeah, let's piss him off right from the get-go and then make him really think hard going into next year towards the end of this season coming up. Do I really want to screw around with this franchise?
Right. And that seems to have been their arbitration strategy lately, has been to let it go to trial with a lot of the players. I think I heard Ian and some other folks talking about it on the compound. The fact that they actually came down and had a deal had a lot to do with, as you said, optics, and that they wanted to get it done before/during the first day of CubsCon, because they didn't want the convention to have all these questions like, when are you going to settle with Kyle Tucker? You working on extension? Wait, your difference was only this much. You really couldn't shake it and get there. What's going on?
And it's a question for me is with this is, and I've heard this, a lot of these owners buy major league teams as assets to be able to get them to be worth more, and then they sell them, and that's where they make their money, right? Mm-hmm. And as an asset, since Ricketts has bought it, the Cubs have they're worth so much money now. The organization and Wrigley Field and everything around it, they're worth so much more money. And you look at other teams not willing to pay big contracts or defer contracts because it's really hard to sell a team when you have a deferred contract down the road, because then they have to take that on. Or if they have all these big contracts and you try to sell a team, that's where the Dodgers, why they can defer all this money is because their owners have no interest in selling, because it's going to be a cash cow for them for generations upon generations. And I look at Ricketts and I feel like he is committed to keeping the Cubs, I think, in the Ricketts family for a really long time. And I think he's looking at the Dodgers, because back in the 80s or 90s, the Dodgers weren't a great run organization, but the things that they did in the 90s and early 2000s set them up for who they are now. And I think he's trying to look at it as okay, the things I'm doing now might set us up by Marquee Sports Network, having the sports book, having the hotel, having Wrigleyville be a thing. And so I don't know. I'm just trying to just think of what they might be trying to do. But let's get into a little bit more of the
private equity owners. Now, if you don't know anything about that, make sure you go watch my interview with Jesse Rogers. We talked about these private equity owners. Even though they don't have any sort of feedback to Tom, that's still pressure on Tom to go produce. And I'm going to equate this to my Airbnb business that I have. The way that we manage that business is that we take on clients who want to go buy a house and they want to put it on Airbnb, but they don't want to do the work. So they have money, they want to make a return, but they don't want to do any work. That's what a private equity investor is like, that they're either a company or a person that says, here's money, we just don't want to do the work. So they've invested it with the Cubs and with the Ricketts family. Now, Tom Ricketts has his number one is to make sure that those private equity investors are making a good return. I'm sorry, fans, but that is the number one, is that he needs to make sure that the revenue that has been created or the loans that have been created to be able to fund this team have to be paid back, and they have to make a return. If they don't, that's a major, major, major issue. Way more major than just upset fans. I'm sorry, but that is the case here. Then he has to say, okay, well, we need to make a really good product to be able to make the fans happy, to then make the money back for those investors. So in my Airbnb business, that's, I'm sure all of you have booked an Airbnb, you're looking for the experience, right? You're looking for the place that's close to Wrigley Field, or you're looking for the one that's themed like, the Wrigley Field Ivy. You're looking for all those great things, a great product that you'll say, hey, I'll pay money for that. The problem is there's a balance. If I go in and I say, hey, let's spend $200,000 to make your Airbnb really, really nice, and I tell them all that's going to do is increase their income by $10,000 a year, that's not a good return. For you that are good at math, that's a 5% return. 5% is not good. So what Tom has to do is he has to say, hey, well, I need to make that a 10% return, so I can only invest $100,000. And for that reason, it makes it, as a person staying in Airbnb, aka the Cubs fan, it makes it a less promising product. But it's this like balance in the middle of like, okay, I'm not totally pissing off fans, but I'm also giving investors what they need. And so for that reason, I'm able to kind of live in this like middle grounds, this gray area. Now, as the fan, we say, well, you should invest more money so it's a better product. 100%. And this is where the part of it where Tom says, hey, we just try to break even. The math doesn't math on this. If you look at Forbes, this could be incorrect, right? Forbes could be wrong on this. Forbes could be missing a number of things. I know for a fact that the numbers that you see in front of you right now, where it says that there was $216 million of player expenses, that's not correct. It was about $239 million, according to the final number that MLB put out a couple months ago. And then it says operating income is $68 million. So you round all this up to be in the neighborhood of between 300 to maybe 325, and the revenue is $506 million. Again, the math doesn't math. I know there's a lot of other things. Maybe $100 million of that goes to private equity investors. Maybe there's, money that's spread all around the family, and so it feels like you're just breaking even because only the Ricketts themselves are only making, call it, I don't know, $10 million a year each. And so that feels like breaking even. For billionaires, that would probably feel like breaking even. But at the end of the day, the math shows that there's roughly a $175 to $200 million spread there. Forbes doesn't know. We don't know. So we have to temper like, okay, is he lying, or is there more to these P&Ls? And that's not my job. If you want to let me know what you think down in the comments, please.
Yeah. So like you can kind of understand a little bit of what it is with these private investors. The big problem is right now is that we're going to have to live in this, like, he has to make them happy, but he wants to make the fans happy. So he's going to shoot for this like 85 to 90 wins every year. That has to be our expectations. He wants to shoot for that in hopes that we get to like 93, 94 and get into the playoffs. He talked a lot about in his interviews on Kaplan and even at the Cubs convention of you just got to make the playoffs. Making the playoffs, and then anything can happen. That's true, but making the playoffs and beating the Dodgers is still really, really hard. It's going to be really hard. And so I don't know. I don't like it that the team I love isn't like, that's where it's like I'm fighting. Like I've heard that like angry and envy are really closely linked. And do I hate the Dodgers, or do I just envy the Dodgers because I wish the Cubs were the Dodgers? And I think that's it. Like, I think we all envy what the Dodgers are doing because they're spending money, and the Cubs and they know they're going to make the playoffs. It's not a matter of like, they know it. Every Dodger fan knows they're going to make the playoffs. And we're like thinking, well, we should win the division. We hope that they make the playoffs, but we still don't know. And so that's the tough thing that we're in. One more question. What is your favorite childhood cartoon theme song? Jeff, go.
Scooby Doo.
Sing it.
Classic.
Kevin.
Scooby Dooby Doo, where are you? I'd say my favorite is probably the X-Men.
Nerd
It comes
alert.
to comes to mind recently with the new X-Men 97. Just that and you can just see all the X-Men flying in over all the rays and everything. Love it. Always was
I
like,
watched one episode.
well,
Not one episode.
one of us is married.
My top 3 is Chippendale Rescue Rangers. Chippendale Rescue
Good one.
Ranger. And then DuckTales. Ooh, DuckTales.
That's a good one.
The coolest part of that is when the rich guy went swimming in the gold coin.
Scrooge
Yep,
McDuck.
the gold.
Yeah.
And then my favorite of all time is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think that is the best theme song for any cartoon. I could sing it. Oh, yeah. It's great.
Scott C says G.I. Joe. That's a
Ooh,
good
G.I.
one. too.
Joe. That's a good one.
A good one. Yep.
But those are mine. Anyway, thanks for listening. I don't know. We're gonna barely make the playoffs, but if we do, that's where I think this team is at. So it's a long winter. It's the coldest. It's freaking cold
It's
in
so
Iowa.
cold. Do you even have school tomorrow? We're delayed right now.
We are up to a late start. We had a 2-hour late start today. So hopefully, I mean, it's just cold. I'm ready for summer. I am so sick of this winter already. Bring on summer. I'm ready to watch some Cubs baseball and chill out, drinking something nice on my patio, listening to the Pat and Ron. So
There you go.
but yeah, thanks for listening and go Cubs.